Hey guys, this is James Hernandez. How's everybody doing? Hope you're all doing good, and welcome to a brand new video. And for today's video, I'm going to be talking about I'm going to be doing a video game review. And today I'm going to be reviewing a racing game from one of my favorite franchises, and that is Crash Nitro Kart. So Crash Nitro Kart is a racing game from the Crash Bandicoot franchise, which was released in 2003, and it was released for the Xbox, PlayStation 2, Nintendo GameCube, and the Game Boy Advance. And this is the second racing game from the Crash Bandicoot series. First was Crash Team Racing for the PlayStation 1 from Naughty Dog. So let's talk about the story of this game. So what happens in this game is that both Team Bandicoot and Team Cortex were all abducted by aliens, and they ended up in this planet that was ruled by the emperor named Velo. So Velo actually gives the Bandicoots and Team Cortex the request to race in all the worlds. So he basically forces them to race. If not, then he's basically going to destroy Earth. So Team Bandicoot and Team Cortex have to race all the tracks in 4 different worlds so they can save the Earth, while they have to challenge Emperor Velo throughout the game's climax. So the first time I played this game was not actually for the Xbox. It was actually for the Game Boy Advance system, when I got that for the Game Boy along with Crash Bandicoot and Trance. So I actually first played Crash Nitro Kart for the Game Boy when I got the Crash Bandicoot Super Pack double feature games for the Game Boy when I was a kid, because back then I was a huge fan of Crash Bandicoot, and it was one of my favorite video game franchises of all time. It's even one of the most iconic video game franchises, along with Mario and Sonic the Hedgehog. So now that I play Crash Nitro Kart for the Xbox, when I got it for the Xbox, and I brought it from GameStop. So what do I think of this game? I thought the game was really fun. Now, I know there's some people that actually say it's definitely not as good as Crash Team Racing, and it's a flawed game. But I still think that this game actually really does hold up. Now, does it have problems? Yeah, it does have its problems, but is it still a good game? I think it is. So let's talk about the graphics in this game. So I think the graphics in this game is actually very nice. Whatever you watch the cutscenes from both Team Bandicoot and Team Cortex, and then you get to the racetracks in different worlds like Terra, Baron, Phenomena, and Techni. And I just think that the racetracks in all these 4 different worlds is actually very detailed and is actually very creative. And the gameplay wise, I do think it's fun. Now, the one thing I kind of don't like about the gameplay is the boosting. Even when you start the race, when you actually make yourself faster, it really kind of still makes the driving mechanics makes your character feel very slow. Even when you're already fast in different boosts, there are times where your opponents or even one of the bosses will just drive past you, and it gets pretty frustrating at times. And it's basically not the greatest, but it's not the worst racing mechanics in the game, but it's definitely not as good as Crash Team Racing, or even Crash Tag Team Racing, which was the 3rd racing game of the Crash Bandicoot franchise. But overall, I think the graphics is actually really good. I think it's very nice. It's really detailed, and it's still fun to play, even though I do think that the boosts is basically the weakest part of the game. But I'll get into that when I talk about the problems I have with the game, because while I do enjoy Crash Nitro Kart, I do have some criticisms. But let's talk about the characters. So of course, if you guys are a huge fan of Crash Bandicoot, like I am, there are 2 teams in story mode, and there's 2 other teams when you're in the World Cup mode, or you're in track modes and all that stuff. So the characters that you mostly follow in this game are Team Bandicoot, which has Crash, Coco, and Crunch, and then you have Team Cortex, where you have Dr. Neo Cortex, and Jin, and Tiny Tiger. So And usually these characters are usually very iconic. You know, Crash is the main character who really doesn't talk. Coco is Crash's sister, who is young, but she's very smart. Crunch is basically the big muscle Bandicoot who likes to exercise, which he was originally created by Dr. Cortex to kill Crash, but then he turns into a good guy. If you guys have seen my review for Crash Bandicoot, The Wrath of Cortex. And then you have Team Cortex, when you have Dr. Neo Cortex, who is the main antagonist of the Crash Bandicoot franchise, and he's always being an over-the-top villain, even in video games, which he's like one of my favorite video game villains of all time. Then you have Dr. Engine, who is Cortex's right-hand man. And then you have Tiny Tiger, who is a big muscular tiger, which he's really not that bright, and he's kind of an idiot. Because usually Tiny Tiger is always so idiotic and does all these stupid things, especially in Crash 3, like when he tries to crush Crash. He just he doesn't really use his brains at all, which is so hilarious. But yeah, that's basically about the main characters in this game. Now the other characters in the game that is not part of the story, but you kind of see them in the story, is but you only see them once. And those are Entrance, then you have Dingle-Dial, then you have Polar, Pura, which is a tiger cub, and then you have Oxide, who was this really green, weird looking character, which I'm not sure how to describe his character, but he was the main antagonist of Crash Team Racing. And then you have the other characters like Zim and Zam, which I don't know who those guys are, which is weird. And then you have Entropy, who actually has the red car, pretty much like Cortex, Engine, and Tiny Tiger. So, and I thought and there's another character I almost forgot to mention, is that they also have Fake Crash. Now, if you don't know who Fake Crash is basically the same appearance as Crash, except his face actually looks, I want to say his face looks a little bigger, with really big eyes and really big teeth, just making him look kind of creepy. And he's basically the opposite of Crash Bandicoot. But yeah, those are the characters that are not in the main story, but you have to unlock these characters when you actually play the game, when you play as either as Team Bandicoot or Team Cortex. Now let's talk about the bosses. Now, after when you finish 3 tracks and you earn each of and you won the trophies when you win first place, in Terra, you actually face this Native American monkey guy named Kronk. Now, Kronk he's basically the native guy from Terra, and then when you beat him, when you play as Team Bandicoot, he's pretty chilled about it, and then Crash actually gives him a yo-yo, and then Kronk doesn't really know how to use a yo-yo, unfortunately, and then he just actually tied himself up. As for Team Cortex, Kronk actually says to Team Cortex, please do not make any trouble, which Cortex was like, oh, trouble? Oh, I won't make any trouble. At least when I actually ruled the planet first. And then, Cortex is just being such a jerk, because that's what Cortex really is. He's over the top. And now you have Nash, which Nash is basically a shark character from Baron. And then when you beat him, he really is not a good sport at all. He is such a sore loser, because when you play in Crash Bandicoot's team, Nash actually basically just passed out when Coco actually hacked his brain to put him to sleep, and he basically just was sleeping. And as for Cortex, he wants Team Cortex to give him the key back, and then Cortex was teasing him, and then as soon as Nash was about to fight them, Velo actually just told Nash to get lost, which he actually did, and that was really funny. Now, as for the next boss, and that is Norm. Now, Norm is actually this little elf-looking character with those elf-looking ears, and he usually does not talk. But then he actually absorbs, and then there's actually Big Norm, who actually looks more like the clown, and he kind of reminds me of the Joker in a way, by his appearance. And he talks while Little Norm doesn't. So when you defeat Norm and Big Norm in Team Bandicoot, I like how Big Norm was like, hey, you know what? You did really good out there. And he turns out to be really nice to the Bandicoots when you actually beat him. And then Crunch was like, you know, you did pretty good too. I think you guys actually did really good with your teamwork. But then as soon as you play as you play in Team Cortex, Big Norm actually congratulates them, but then like Cortex was just kind of being disrespectful, and then he was like, go away, you filthy clown. And then Big Norm actually got insulted, and then he was like, it was like, hey, who are you calling me a clown? At least I'm not the guy who has a big head with the stupid springing hair with the N on your forehead. And I was just like, yeah, you guys are really roasting each other. And then you get into Techni's champion boss, and that is Gary. Now, Gary is a robot that is known for like cleaning up messes, and then he's usually just a robot, I guess. And then when he lost, he usually has to like do all these types of chores. Like he has to like clean everything, you know, pretty much like you have to like clean up your house, you know, and all that stuff. Like when you're doing like all these chores is pretty much like Gary's responsibility. And then you get into the final boss, and that is Velo. Now, Velo is one of the toughest bosses ever in the game, because every time I play as, every time like when I was like facing Velo in both Team Bandicoot and Team Cortex, he is really so difficult to beat, because not only that he has like those little mini henchmen with him, but also like he would just like have a habit of like throwing like all these like weapons behind you, like whatever you're far from him, or even you get too close to him. And he will also like shoot missiles at you when you just like ran past him. And even when I was a kid, I get like so frustrated with the game, and to the point I was like, come on. And then like even during like the last lap, like my heart was pounding during it, because I tried so hard and so desperately. It took me like about like 10 times to beat him, and I still couldn't even beat this guy because of like how OP this guy is. But then I actually finally defeated him. And then there are like two different cutscenes where after you defeated Velo, the first one is where you said he got angry at first, but then he actually cools down, and then he was like, congratulations, now you're all free to go, even though he won't send you to Earth, because that actually counts as like refusing to race, so then he was going to destroy Earth. So that is where he was like, oh, a rematch sounds exciting. So basically in every Crash Bandicoot game, it's like you had to earn all the time relics, and then you actually face Velo again. So what do you get from after defeating Velo for the first time? Nothing. And I was just like, really? So then that's actually one of the things I really don't like about the game. As soon as like I'm gonna start talking about the criticisms, because this game does have a couple problems. Now, usually like after when you defeat Velo for the first time, you have to like do all the time relics. The time relics I actually don't mind, but the one I actually don't like is you have to get the SNK logos. And even when you get all of them, you still have to win first place. And that I just felt like it's kind of like unfair. And also, you also have to like, whatchamacallit, I don't know, like every time you had to like get all the SNK like logos in each race, it's really hard to find, and it was such a pain. And to the point where I was like, I kind of felt like I was just like, oh no, it was right here. Oh no, it's over there. Oh no, it's right there. And usually like even during the final lap, I still couldn't even find it. So I thought having the SNK relics during the rematch was really unnecessary. But yeah, I think those like one of the things I also pretty much don't like about the game. It's just like it's so frustrating to find those things, and to the point where I was like, it just doesn't, it really is like not that fun, and it just feels like it's like a chore to get through. Now let's talk about the ending. So if you guys have not played Crash Nitro Kart, if you don't want to get spoiled, go play this game and then come back. And then if you want to know about what happens, then I'll give you guys a couple seconds to back out. Okay, I guess if you guys are still here, either you play the game or you just don't care about being spoiled. Okay, so let's talk about what happens in the end. So basically, after you beat Velo in the final race, after you get all of these time relics, like that Velo actually requests you to do. So when you beat Velo again, Velo actually gets angry, and then the more times he gets angry, you know what happens? He blew up, and then it turns out that Velo was a robot the whole time. And I was just like, what? I'm like, that's insane. And then it turns out that that the real Velo was actually the little alien that actually was controlling the robotic Velo. So in Crash Bandicoot's team, after when he defeated Velo, Velo actually gives his whatever that thing is, like his stick thing, but so he gives it to the Bandicoots, but then Crash decided to give it to Velo. So then Velo actually did made a deal with the Bandicoots that the Bandicoots are now returning home. So Crash, Coco, and Crunch, they return home, and they're basically are just like relaxing, like on the beach, like they're having a vacation. As for Team Cortex, they actually broke Velo's thing, and then and they actually got teleported to Terra, which is really funny because Dr. Engine thought it was Earth, so he was like, "Earth, we made it!" And then Cortex actually recognizes that it wasn't really Earth, so he was like, "Wait a minute, this isn't Earth." And then you have all these like native those native people that looks like Krunk bows down to both Cortex, Engine, and Tiny. And Cortex was like, "I don't think we're in Kansas anymore, Tiny." But then Tiny actually fixes it, and then he pretty much like doesn't seem to mind to be in Terra. And then Cortex got so frustrated to the point where he was like, "Tiny, you idiot!" And then that's the end for Team Cortex. So basically the Bandicoots actually do got a good ending, whereas Dr. Cortex, not so much, because they got teleported into a different location because they thought they got transported to Earth, but then they got teleported to Terra. And then Tiny, not thinking things right, he just he fixes that thing that Velo has. And then he doesn't really seem to mind being in Terra of being the kings. And then that's where Cortex got so frustrated and so mad. I was just like, oh my god. And it's just like, because Dr. Neo Cortex, like in every Crash Bandicoot game, has always been such a sore loser. Whatever, like Crash defeated him, and then he was like, "Oh come on, that's not fair, let me win." And I was just, that is why Dr. Cortex is like one of my favorite video game villains in the Crash Bandicoot series. He's just so over the top, and he really is over the top in this game. So yeah, so my overall thoughts on Crash Nitro Kart, I thought it was really fun. I wouldn't say it was as good as Crash Team Racing, and because I think the boosts is really not the best, and sometimes the controls can get a little loose. But overall, when it's good, I still think it's a really fun game. I do recommend this game to fans of Crash Bandicoot, and if you really like kart racing games, which is like kind of similar to Mario Kart, or even like one of those like other like kart racing games, which it has like the Mario Kart concept style. And if you really love the first game, then I guess you should definitely go play this game as well. So I think that it's got really good graphics, good voice acting. The controls are pretty good for the most part, and I really like the cutscenes. The only criticisms I have with the game is that after when you beat the bosses are not playable, which it doesn't make any sense, because when I played this game for the Game Boy, after you defeat every single boss, the bosses are actually are unlockable. You can actually unlock the bosses like from each of the worlds, especially unlock Velo. So and I wish they actually do include it in this game, which and since they don't really unlock the bosses in this game after when you beat them in every final race in their champions, it's so disappointing. But other than that, this is actually a very fun game. So on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm gonna give Crash Nitro Kart a solid 8 out of 10. This is actually really fun. Are there problems? Yes. But is it still good? Yes. So I really do think that if some people didn't really like this game, I think they should give this game another chance. Sure, and it may have some issues like I mentioned in this review, but when the stuff is good, it's still playable, and I still think it's really fun to play to this day. It may not be as good as Crash Team Racing for the PlayStation, but this game is actually it's still fun to play. Especially like if you really like kart racing games from like Crash Bandicoot, and if you really like the kart style, which is pretty similar to Mario Kart, or even like one of the other games in the future that has like the Mario Kart style, then this is the game that you guys should definitely play. So yeah, I think that's all I got to say about Crash Nitro Kart. So I want to hear from you guys. What did you guys think of Crash Nitro Kart? Did you guys like it? Did you guys hate it? What do you think of the graphics? What do you think of the gameplay? Do you like this more than Crash Team Racing, or do you think Crash Team Racing is a better racing game? Comment below and let me know. And also, in case if you guys are brand new here, feel free to subscribe to my channel, hit that like button, and turn on the notifications when I make brand new videos. And stay tuned, coming up next, and I'm going to be doing a movie review, and the next movie I'm going to be reviewing is Cloverfield. So stay tuned for that one, because that movie is coming up next. So anyways, that's all I got to say for today, guys. I want to say thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it, and hope you guys enjoyed my review for Crash Nitro Kart. This is James Hernandez. I want to say, have a great day. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.